Somebody asked us whether we were cousins.
Mm-hmm.
Cousin.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a cousin. Think of that.
Hey, Mark, how are you?
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to
Oh,
you.
right.
Are you sick?
No, just exhausted.
You just got back?
Last night, late last night. And it's like you get back and you're just like, and then of course the time zone makes you wake up. So I went to sleep at midnight, woke up at 4, and just like,
Yeah.
But if you didn't do this, you'd go to sleep and you'd be out of whack tomorrow.
That's exactly
Right,
correct.
so productive sleep is hard to come by.
That's right.
Even if you're sleeping.
I know. Hey, Bob.
Good afternoon. How are you? Happy New Year. Welcome back.
Been with me. No, it feels like 3 in the morning. He's messing with me. Anyway, Happy New Year to you both. Nice to see you guys. Oh, who's here? Gene. Oh. Let's see. Why is my camera is now strangely. Hi, Gene.
Hi, Rabbi. Welcome back.
Thank you. How do I do this? Owl. Where's the owl? Is that it? No, Microsoft Teams.
How was your trip? A couple of words.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Always so meaningful and special to be there. Hey, Mark. Nice to see you.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
How do I do this thing? Where is the owl? Where is this thing? Sorry, I'm like looking at the computer as I'm trying to see how I can change that camera so it goes correctly and doesn't look at me at the side of my head. Okay. Owl. Meeting Owl app. There's what I'm looking. Huh, what happened? Okay.
No.
Getting ready to
Plug
come.
in your device. Of course it is plugged in. There, no, already plugged in. Love it when that happens.
Oh,
All right,
I'd be curious to know if,
let's just turn it a little bit, see what happens. All right, nice beard.
Are we getting a report tonight?
Hmm?
Are we getting a report on your trip?
I'll give you a little one. I got nothing much to say though, other than it was nice to be there, as always. Meaningful and nice to be there.
yeah.
Here, we're
I
doing,
would be curious to know if Sue will
this.
remember anything.
I think we're gonna just do
Because
this.
she went
Oh, I
right-
wanted to get one
right
thing. I'll be right back after I let this person in.
After,
After I let Lisa's iPhone in. Be right back, 1/2 second.
I wonder,
No, here's 5, just
yeah,
in
the
case we need this.
coffee pot's been on since.
I'm not sure. You're right, guys.
See what we said. 5. I think 5 last charge.
I think I have everything.
5, yeah. I think we picked up 5. Lisa's not coming.
I need to read this, I said. Conversation.
I feel like as I was reading, I saw a really nice introduction. Oop, Charles is here.
What, hon? Don't. Okay, no, I'm coming back down. I was getting my notebook.
Rabbi,
Good, right?
Rabbi,
Yeah,
hey, it's Freya.
Hi.
I just want to make sure our appointment tomorrow morning is via Zoom, right?
if it is, then it is, and if not, then it is. So hold on. I have in my phone, it says in person, but I also see that there was a Zoom link made. So use the Zoom link that was made. Do you have
Okay.
that? Yep, so it's fine.
Yep.
I have in person, so I'm glad you're telling me that. I would have waited for you. Now, let me see really quickly if I can find
I
1197.
wasn't gonna let him see you.
I said a little further away.
Lisa, your phone is, you're not muted, so
Oh, I'm sorry.
that's okay.
It's okay, we
I
enjoy
just
hearing
didn't
you.
want you to let us in on anything
Right.
you didn't want to let us in on.
We're not cleared for top secret information.
Or smoochy stuff. Oh, I wonder whether anybody's coming out in the cold. Looks like- I love this weather, so it doesn't bother me coming out in the cold.
You like the cold?
I like the cold. I don't know what's miswired on me, but I do like the cold.
I kind of like the cold too. I like to
Don't
be
mind it.
walking in the cold.
I never used to feel cold
Never
though
mind
until I
walking
got
in it.
old.
Me
Now I
too.
feel cold.
Yeah.
You don't know from old.
All right, shall we? Let's get to it. Nice to see everybody. It's been a little while. As I was kind of looking at the materials, I'm like, wait, where did we leave off? And then I found a little note that I made, so I can fortunately say that I do know where we were. So where we left off was we were in the middle of discussing Elazar ben Shimon. So hopefully what you have is a copy of the supplemental Elazar ben Shimon material. If you do not have it here in this room, that's no problem, because I have extra copies. If you do not have it there on Zoom, I apologize, there is nothing I can do about that. So does everyone have it here? You need it, good. Oh, so, need one? Sure.
I need one. I
No
thought I
problem.
had it.
No problem. So, okay, so I gave a fair amount of material on Elazar. First of all, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu v'tzivanu v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. We praise you, Adonai, our God, for commanding us to busy ourselves in the words of Torah. Amen. Now, see, I'm just so curious. I'm pointing just to why the camera is just on me and not, hopefully it'll go to people. No problem.
As we
I
talk,
had it.
let's
As
see
you
if
talk.
it does, and we'll see if the camera moves to hear my voice.
It's not. I have to recalibrate it, and when I did, it said it didn't recognize, so I have to unplug and replug, but it's not
There's a
working.
dog attacking Lisa.
Yep, Lisa's getting mauled by a dog.
I got you.
So anyway, so all that you have is the camera on me. It's okay this time. And by the way, I am streaming this because Jim and Karen have asked that they watch this. So you should know that this is being streamed, so it's therefore recorded. So if you want to like slip me a note or something when you're about to ask a question, and I can tell you if it's a good question or bad question. I'm joking. So Elazar ben Shimon, let's get back to him. We started, the first one we read, and I'll jar your memory a little bit as I remind you of some of these fun stories. We read about how when he was young, these people came over and he put donkeys on the roof of his house. Again, who knows if this is true or not, but he did, and so it was kind of a recognition of his strength, but I would say less his strength and more his size, and we'll get to that in fun detail today. I mean, fun. This is one of my more favorite ones to talk about, just because you're going to be like, oh my God, this is going to be an oh my God class. Okay, so then we talked about how I reminded you about how he is the son of Shimon bar Yochai, very famous rabbi who he was the one who criticized the Roman government, and as a result, he went into hiding in a cave with his son, and that son is this guy, right? And you remember that we've probably talked about the cave story a few times, and that's this guy. Okay, and then the next one we talked about how he was kind of tutored by this rabbi named Yossi ben Halafta. And I remind you of that name just because it's actually going to be mildly relevant later. But about how he was kind of, his father died and he kind of grew up without a father figure, at least to kind of help teach him materials. And what we learn next is that there was, actually, excuse me, it wasn't Yossi ben Halafta, it was something else. I'll get to it in a minute. The next one we saw, and this is on, it's the one that says Baba Metzia 84b 14 through 18. So I think it's probably 2 or 3 sections in on my sheet. And we did this story about how there was he and Rabbi, and Rabbi is Judah Hanassi. They were kind of students together, young students in the school, in the yeshiva, and they were seated in the front, but at the feet of the teachers. And those teachers were Shimon ben Gamliel, that was Judah Hanassi's father, and Yehoshua ben Korcha, and they didn't, and all of their fellow students recognized how wise those two were. That is to say, our person, Elazar ben Shimon, and Judah Hanassi. And they said, what are they doing sitting on the ground? Let's elevate them, have them sit with us on benches, like, you know, because we learned so much from them. How could we place ourselves above them? And Judah Hanassi's father, Shimon ben Gamliel, he's like, no, you're going to sit down there on the ground, to his own son. Like, you know, I want you to do that because for 2 reasons. Number one is for humility's purposes. And for number 2 is because I don't want people to think that I show you favoritism. Elazar ben Shimon, on the other hand, our guy, he is insulted by the fact that he also is seated on the ground, and he believes that, and I'm sorry, I'm just going in circles and I'm a little delirious, but it's fine. So, and Yehoshua ben Korcha, the other kind of elder teacher in that room, kind of looks out for him and takes care of him and says, he doesn't have a dad here to help, let me do that for him. And he also kind of tries to do the same thing that Judah Hanassi's father did, which was keep him seated on the ground out of a sense of humility and also because of the sense of favoritism in that. But for some reason, Elazar ben Shimon is insulted, feels like, how dare they, you know, not elevate me? I'm far superior to the other students sitting next to me, and I can't believe you guys are doing, when they're doing him a kindness and a favor, he doesn't see it that way. He sees it as an affront. So, in this text that I just discussed, towards the end of it, so now hopefully, and I hope that you all know where I am.
So both the son and Yehud and Hanassi,
Right.
both were offended.
Well, both were offended, but the father at least was there for Judah Hanassi to be able to say, look, I'm doing this for a reason.
Yeah.
Whereas Elazar ben Shimon doesn't have someone to say, I'm doing this for a reason, like, trust me, I know what I'm doing here, but rather he just gets offended by it. And so if you look at the last 2 paragraphs of that section, so it would be the 2 paragraphs just prior to the Ta'anit text that I provided you. Hopefully you all see it. It says, upon hearing his argument, let's go 1 paragraph earlier. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel said to the other sages, I have a single fledgling among you, that is to say, my son Judah Hanassi, and you are seeking to take it away from me. Why? Because he believes that if they elevate him, he'll be arrogant, and also if they elevate him, they'll think it was just by favoritism, and so no one will believe that he was worthy as a sage of his own merits, which is kind of what we've been talking about. And so that's what he's trying to say. They demoted Judah Hanasi to sit on the ground at his father's request. Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha said to the sages, should one who has a father to care for him live, while the other one who does not have a father to care for him should be allowed to die? And again, die doesn't mean literal death.
I circled that because I thought that's
It means
pretty harsh.
death in terms of not being raised up to the status of the sage that he should be, because of maybe arrogance got in the way or whatever it is. He needed a father to kind of keep him at bay, right? So then, upon hearing his argument, the sages also demoted Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, without explaining to him the reason for the demotion, right? And so in other words, what's happening is that so they did the right thing, but they didn't tell him why. He became offended and said to them, you're equating Judah Hanasi to me? I'm far more, granted, Judah Hanasi is going to become the final redactor of the mission, really one of the greats. Again, I happen to think that he has a better reputation than he actually is worthy in terms of scholarship. But let's grant that he at least is somebody important and special. And yet Elazar ben Shimon is saying, you're comparing the two of us. I'm far superior to him. And as a result of that incident, these two friends stopped being friends.
Nothing has changed under the sun.
That's exactly right. Up until that day when Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi would state a matter of Torah, Elazar, son of Shimon, would support him by citing proofs for his opinion. From this point forward, when they were discussing a subject and Judah Hanasi would say, I have an argument to make or to respond to, Elazar, son of Shimon, would preempt him by saying to him, such and such is what you have to say. This is the refutation of your claim. In other words, I know what you're going to say. Let me tell you why you're wrong before you even say it. Right? And as a result, Judah Hanasi became offended. So the two of them basically, and there was no need for them to do that. And the reality is that Judah Hanasi didn't do anything wrong. It was all Elazar ben Shimon who made this become a problem. Okay? So that's where we kind of left off last week. So let's keep, again, by the way, I want you to know that this guy, Elazar ben Shimon, is one of, to me, the least likable people in all of our literature, right? I mean, he's putting donkeys on the roof, right? He is arrogant beyond belief. He shoots space lasers out of his eyes from the previous one. You may remember, but it's one of my favorites. And again, I'm not. Admittedly, you're going to see some other really nasty ones about him, but it all just contributes to what I think of as him just a very unlikable person in our text. So if you think that it's one just luminary after another, and they're all just like one great who's greater than the other. Okay, fine, but at the same time, I think, and there weren't like any other texts which would say, well, but he was really great this way. Like, I'm just giving you the classics about him, and I think I don't even need to explain to you that why he kind of doesn't deserve to be one of the favorites. But can't deny that he is got a lot written about him. But so let's keep going, and it gets so good after this. Okay, you've picked the perfect class. Anyone who didn't come today is gonna wish they could turn back the clock. Ta'anit 20a16. The sages. Does everyone see where I am? The sages further taught in praise of the reed. A person should always be soft like a reed, and he should not be stiff like a cedar. An incident occurred in which Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, came from Migdal Gedor, from his rabbi's house, and he was riding a donkey and strolling on the bank of the river. And he was very happy, and his head was swollen with pride because he had studied much Torah, right? So you get the sense he's just he's like just, woo, he's all happy because he had just had a great learning session with his teacher. It continues, by the way, this is the continuation. He happened upon an exceedingly ugly person who said to him, "Greetings to you, my rabbi." But Rabbi Elazar did not return his greeting. Instead, Rabbi Elazar said to him, "Worthless person, how ugly is that man? Are all the people of your city as ugly as you?" Right? It's like, what a horrible thing to say to somebody. What an absolutely horrible, horrible thing to say to someone. There's no words, right? The man said to him, now if you want to see a comeback of comebacks, if you want to see like the absolute perfect thing to say in response, the man said to him, to the question of, are all the people of your city as ugly as you? The man said to him, I don't know, but you should go and say to the craftsman who made me, how ugly is this vessel that you made? Right? Who's the craftsman? God. Right? So when Rabbi Elazar realized that he had sinned and insulted this man on account of his appearance, and again, on appearance, like even, you don't even, like, right? And by the way, this is just the beginning of how unsavory this guy is.
The beauty is he was shaking, his head was swollen with pride.
Yeah.
So he was.
Yeah.
He was being.
He was just so arrogant and so puffed up that he just couldn't see other people. All he was just so proud of himself. But the other thing about it is that there's an expression, if that's not the pot calling the kettle black, right? We're going to see just like, oh my God, is that not the pot calling the kettle black? But let's keep going. So he realized that he had sinned. He descended from his donkey and prostrated himself before him, and he said to the man, I have sinned against you, forgive me. And the man said to him, I will not forgive you until you go to the craftsman who made me and say, how ugly is the vessel that you made? Now, to his credit, to Elazar's credit, he did realize immediately that he had completely screwed up, and he apologized immediately. So you have to give him credit. I mean, and I do give him credit for that. And this guy is obviously so insulted that he's like, I'm not forgiving you. First go, say it to God. Right? So he walked behind the man, trying to appease him, until they reached Rabbi Elazar's city. The people of his city came out to greet him, saying to him, greetings to you, my rabbi, my master, my master. The man said to them, who are you calling my rabbi, my rabbi? They said to him, to this man who's walking behind you. He said to them, if this man is a rabbi, may there not be many like him amongst the Jewish people. Wow, right? They asked him, for what reason do you say this? And he said to them, he did such and such to me. They said to him, even so forgive him, as he's such a great Torah scholar. So no one is questioning his Torah scholarship, but we are questioning him at his humanity and his kindness and his menschlichkeit. And the people of the city are like, can you please just forgive him and give this guy a break? He said to them, that is the man who was accused of being ugly. He said to them, for your sakes, I forgive him, provided that he accepts upon himself not to become accustomed to behave like this. In other words, that he never does this again. Okay, he's forgiven him. Immediately, Rabbi Elazar, son of Shimon, entered the study hall and taught. A person should always be soft like a reed, and he should not be stiff like a cedar. As one who is proud like a cedar is likely to sin, and therefore due to its gentle qualities, the reed merited that a quill is taken from it to write with it a Torah scroll, tefillin, and a mezuzah. It's a sweet story, the end. But what is unquestionable is just how we got to this place, which was just unnecessary and a nasty, nasty thing, which it's, even if the person was truly, truly ugly beyond belief, I mean, if my kid said, said something to some, my God, you are so ugly. It's like, think it, but don't say it. Right? I'm just like, look, there have been plenty of people in my life who, for whatever reason or another, I have just been kind of like, wow, that is, whether it's ugly or whatever, some physical feature that made me say, wow.
Yeah, but you're living 2,000 years later. Maybe our mores have evolved.
I don't
Maybe,
think so.
but clearly they
They
haven't.
haven't. No.
Because he says,
he
how
was-
would you say that to me?
He was called to account.
Yeah,
And he even called himself to account when you think about it.
again,
He realized that it.
correct. To his, again, I don't credit him for much, but at least to his credit, he immediately kind of like was like, whoa, I kind of screwed this up. I really regret what I said. But still, because we're going to see a couple other times in which he says something and then takes it back or whatever, and and then suddenly this is becoming a pattern with him. But trust me when I tell you that at least we're going to have a chance to laugh at him a little bit in a moment, because
The stuff in bold is the.
no, stuff in bold is the actual Talmud, the
So
stuff
he
that
actually said, how ugly are all the people in your city as ugly as you?
right,
That's
right.
not a
That's recorded,
fill-in.
right?
It's horrible.
That's
Maybe he has
pretty-
Tourette's.
Right, it just says, you know what? He probably was on the spectrum. I don't know if it was Tourette's, but probably was on the spectrum.
Yeah, you don't treat people in
It's
society
horrible.
like that.
It's horrible. Right? He is really one of my least favorite characters in the
I mean,
entire
that's
thing.
kind of like saying you're ugly and your wife's fat too.
Right,
You know, maybe.
Well, he goes even beyond and
Right.
says, may there not be many like him,
Right.
Jewish people.
it's like,
Oh, God.
God, how could he? Everything about it is so horrible, right? Well, guess what? Let's have more fun, because you think that's actually tame, although some of the next ones are more about him. So Gemara relates a story involving rising early. Okay, so just prior to this, there was a whole situation in which one of the great rabbis, who we will study a little bit later on, excuse me, whose name was Reish Lakish, is talking about how people shouldn't work at night. You should work during the daytime. No one should be a night worker. But anyway, I just want to give you the context for it. Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, found a certain officer whose responsibility was to arrest thieves. So far, no problem. Right? He said to the officer, "How are you able to arrest them? Since the wicked are so devious, perhaps you apprehend the righteous and leave the wicked alone. How are you doing this? Maybe you make a mistake." Right? The officer said to him, "But what should I do? It's the king's edict that I must arrest thieves, and I'm doing the best that I can." Elazar said to him, "Come, and I'll instruct you how to do it. At the 4th hour of the day, enter the tavern." In other words, 4th hour of the day means late morning. Enter the tavern. When you see someone drinking wine, holding his cup in his hand, and dozing, inquire about his background. So if you see someone who is like nodding off while drinking wine at 11 o'clock in the morning, ask him what his background is like. If he's a Torah scholar and he's dozing, assume that he rose early in the morning for his studies. If he's a daytime laborer, assume that he rose early and performed his work. And if his work is at night and no one heard him working, it's possible that this is because he draws copper wires, which is a form of labor that does not produce noise. And if he has none of these, he's a thief. Okay? He's a thief. And you should arrest him, as it can be assumed that he was awake the previous night because he was stealing, and that's why he's now dozing off. Right?
Those
So
are the only option.
those are the only options. There's an expression, not expression, there's a word in English, I think it's epistemology. You familiar with epistemology? Epistemology is when it's the study or it's the science of knowledge. And it's kind of basically, but the concept is how to distinguish between what you think and what you know, right? Right? And this is this perfect example of him I love how I have my hand up. Okay, this is a perfect example of, of a person if he is suggesting something that he knows when in fact it's maybe just something that he thinks, right? So it continues. The matter of the advice of Rabbi Elazar, son of Shimon, was heard in the king's palace. The king's ministers said, "Let the reader of the letter be its messenger." Since Elazar offered this advice, he should be the one to implement it. So suddenly, now the new officer in charge of arresting thieves is Elazar. They brought Elazar, son of Shimon, to the authorities who appointed him to the task, and he proceeded to arrest thieves by what he thinks, not what he knows. Yoshua ben Korcha, remember when I mentioned, we're going to come back, he was the guy, if you remember, who kind of took Elazar under his wing when he said he doesn't have a father. Okay, right? Yoshua ben Korcha sent Rabbi Elazar, son of Shimon, the following message: "You are vinegar, son of wine." In other words, your dad was wine, delicious tasting wine, and you are disgusting vinegar. You are wicked in comparison to your father. Until when will you inform on the nation of our God to be sentenced to execution by the Gentile king's court? In other words, you are just bringing your fellow Jews and accusing them of being thieves, sending them to be executed. What is wrong with you? This is what that guy who took, and maybe it's like he realized that all along I failed you as and now he just needed to say in the most harsh ways, "You are vinegar, the son of wine."
Could you imagine having a cranky baby in the house and staying up
And
all
that's why,
night?
right.
And you're dragged off.
Right.
As a
Can you
thief.
imagine having traveled back from Israel the night before? I can't keep my eyes open right now. If I went to the tavern, I would be drooling with a glass of wine in my hand.
Right.
And now I'm being accused of being a thief? Epistemology. What you think versus what you know. Elazar, son of Shimon, sent a message back to him. In other words, back to the teacher, Korcha, Yoshua ben Korcha. "I am merely eradicating thorns from the vineyard. I'm just weeding out the bad stuff, even if it's our own people."
Sounds very much like ICE agents.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
It does.
Yes, it does. Rabbi Yoshua ben Korcha sent back to him, "Let the owner of the vineyard come and eradicate his own thorns. Not you." Right now, it's the second time in which someone's had to say, "Who do you think you are? Why don't you, God's the one who's in charge, not you."
Rabbi, I hate to
Yeah.
interrupt again,
Yeah.
but it says, it's not your place to do this. He didn't appoint himself to do it, though.
But he is certainly having a good time doing it.
Yes.
I think that's what it is.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, "it's not your place to do this" is not the actual text. That's
Yeah,
the
That's the interpretation.
That's the interpretation, right. The Gemara relates, here it gets even worse. And remember when I said to you my mistake, he goes back and kind of like quickly, apologizes after. Anyway, so one day a certain laundryman met Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, and called him vinegar, son of wine. In other words, right? Clearly that expression is now getting around. And so a random person, a laundryman, said, "Oh, here comes vinegar, son of wine." Right? Elazar, son of Shimon, said, "From the fact that this man acted so insolently by vilifying a Torah scholar, one can conclude that he is a wicked person. The fact that you criticize the ICE agents, meaning you said, that it's like, they're so important, they're so special, they're godly, those ICE agents. How can you criticize them, right? You must be bad, right? So the fact that you were so insolent by vilifying a Torah scholar, one can conclude that he is a wicked person." Therefore, he should be put in jail, right? So basically, and I am not, and don't think that anyone can bait me to do it. I am not going to make any connections to when you speak bad about someone that you are immediately being thrown into jail or maybe reduced in rank in the. I'm not going to, don't bait me. I will not say anything. He said, because we can conclude that he's a wicked person, and he told the authorities, arrest that man, that laundryman. They arrested him and condemned him to death. Jewish laundryman who said, you vinegar son of wine, right? After his mind settled, in other words, after maybe his like being angry or feeling insulted, after kind of he calmed down, he regretted his hasty decision. Of course he did. Just like he regretted his decision to call the man ugly. He went after the laundryman in order to ransom him and save him from execution, but he was unable to do so. In other words, he wasn't fast enough. He read the verse about him. Whoever keeps his mouth and his tongue keeps his soul from troubles. In other words, he, though, still blamed the laundryman for it, saying, if only you had just kept your mouth shut, you would have been free from troubles. Which,
I thought he was talking about himself.
Yeah, that's what I did too when I read it.
that's right. I did too when I first read it, because of course it should be read that way. But no, that's not how he said, he should have just kept his mouth shut. Ultimately, they hanged the laundryman. Right? Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, stood beneath the gallows and wept. Those who were present said to him, our teacher, let it not be bad in your eyes that you caused his death, as this laundryman was a wholly wicked person. You should know that he and his son both engaged in intercourse with a betrothed young woman on Yom Kippur. In other words,
He was a bad guy anyway.
yeah, yeah,
So it's okay.
right. It's exactly right. So it's perfectly fine because he did that. I mean,
And that's all
in other words, they were saying, oh, don't weep, don't weep. You actually condemned a wicked person. First of all, the fact that the wickedness is only a subjective wickedness, right? It's like, yes, he and his son on Yom Kippur had intercourse with a betrothed young woman. You shouldn't have intercourse with a betrothed young woman. You certainly shouldn't do it on Yom Kippur.
But how do they even know that?
Right? It's like eating a BLT on Passover. Okay, you shouldn't eat bacon, and you shouldn't eat bacon. You shouldn't eat bread, and it's Passover. Clearly, right? But the point is that but it's not subject to death, and they are trying to convince him that he still is such a good person because he had some sort of brilliance about him, knowing that it's a wicked person, even if it wasn't. You know, he didn't like, right, it's like, sure, he may not, I shouldn't have condemned him to death for calling me a name, but he did evade it. It was a tax evasion, and so therefore he deserved it. Like, the whole thing is twisted and wrong, and in my opinion, certainly, I don't think at all, even though they're trying to rehabilitate, to kind of clean him a little bit from this, I don't think anyone reads it as, oh, he's clean.
Question?
Yes.
That wouldn't be a time where that would have been a stoning offense to
No.
commit adultery or anything?
No.
Okay.
No, not anymore. No.
But if the people who told him, those were present, knew that this guy.
They were his students that were trying to
So they made this stuff up. Right?
Yeah. Right. And we don't even know that he and his son had because, by the way, if it is true that he and his son both engaged in intercourse with betrothed young women, then they should have said, where's the son?
Yeah.
But it wasn't. They're just like, oh, it's fine that he killed, like he was a bad guy. It's horrible. Horrible. And again, back to that same, concept about epistemology, about what is the, what you know versus just what you think. And it's It's terrible. It gets worse.
Are they implicating rape because she was a betrothed young woman?
No,
No, just,
I
no.
think they're just
And
making
maybe-
stuff up to
Right,
Yeah.
yes, they're just
to
making stuff up.
suck
and-
up to their teacher.
Right, because it could have been, yes, it could have been consensual. Again,
Yeah.
we don't even know if it actually happened. It could have been just a completely made up story. And we heard he ate a BLT on Passover, right? It's like that's,
That part is true.
right, right. Reminds me of, I don't know if you ever, there's so long ago, I saw a quick diversion just because it's so funny. There was Sacha Baron Cohen, who's Borat, also had this character named Ali G, who's very funny. And one time Ali G, Sacha Baron Cohen character, is interviewing Pat Buchanan. And this is right during the time after 9/11. And we are in Iraq, right? And Ali G says to Pat Buchanan, "Is it true that we had that there are BLTs in Iraq?" Right? And Pat Buchanan says, "Well, WMDs, there are WMDs, but what about, but there are BLTs." And he keeps pushing BLTs in Iraq until Pat Buchanan starts saying, "Yes, there are BLTs in Iraq." It's priceless. If you ever want to, Ali G, BLTs in Iraq, take a look. It's absolutely hilarious. Anyway, okay. Upon hearing this, Rabbi Elazar, son of Shimon, placed his hand upon his belly over his innards and said, "Rejoice, my innards, rejoice. If your mere suspicions are so accurate, all the more so are your certainties." Ugh, right? They lied to him in order to make him feel better, and all he's doing is using those lies to further confirm what his absurd beliefs. Ugh, right? If the condemnation of this man based upon the suspicions raised by his insolence proved to be correct, the identification of thieves in accordance with logical reasoning, and by the way, logical reasoning is just if he's drooling at the bar and he's
False logic.
right, exactly. That's the logic he's talking about. I am assured about you, my innards. He's speaking to his belly. That worm and maggot will not affect you, which is a sign of a completely righteous person then, right? Meaning that any fat that he has, of which we'll find out a little later, he was an enormously obese human being. Any fat that he has will not get infested by maggots. If it is right, and you'll understand this better in a second. Nevertheless, his mind was not calmed, and so he decided to test. He wasn't 100% certain that every instinct he had was right, and so he decided to test himself. He arranged for people to give him a sedative to drink, and they brought him into a house of marble where surgeries were performed. And he had the first case of the gastro surgery, whatever, in which they just suck out fat, and cut open his belly. Liposuction. They removed baskets upon baskets of fat from it and placed, really, see, this is when the Talmud is at its best. Right? You think the Talmud is supposed to be all about laws and holy stuff. No. Right? They put baskets and baskets of fat, placed them in the hot sun in the summer months of Tammuz and Av, and the fat did not putrefy. Sure it didn't. But that's the myth of him, right? And in this manner, Rabbi Elazar, son of Shimon, received proof that his decisions were correct and that he was a wholly righteous individual. Ha! Ha ha ha! It continues. When okay, now, this is just a fun one.
And he survived this process.
Yeah, clearly. There's that much fat. This is a fun one. This is a really fun one. It has nothing to do with the story we were just reading, but it does have to do with just how fat this guy was, right? So that when
timeline of this.
That's by the way why I said if that's not the pot calling the kettle black to the ugly guy when this morbidly obese man is just saying you fatso or you are so ugly. But the timeline of this,
Of this guy, yeah.
200, maybe 180. When Rabbi Yishmael, son of Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon, would meet each other, it was possible for a pair of oxen to enter and fit between them under their bellies without touching them. Right? In other words, if two extremely obese people come and say hello to each other, their bellies touch, but there's so much room that they could have a team of oxen go under doing like the limbo underneath their bellies. Like, this is just how I want you to know, have I not really just taken this honorable holy Talmud and brought it to the absolute lowest place I have done it? So mazel tov, I'm a success.
You told us, did you?
I maybe have told that before because I just love that story so much. It's just so
I think you
funny.
told it on a Friday night for some reason.
That would be perfect for me, right? Right? A certain Roman noblewoman once said to them, both of those guys, your children are not your own children. As due to your obesity, it is impossible that you engaged in intercourse with your wives because you're incapable, you're that large. They said to her, theirs, in other words, our wives' bellies are even larger than our bellies, right? It's like, she said to them, all the more so you could not have had intercourse. There are those who say that this is what they said to her, for as the man is, so is his strength. In other words, they were trying to suggest that as strong as they were, that so is their virility, let's call it. There are those who say that this is why they said to her, love compresses the flesh. This is so funny.
Yeah, but that's kind of like really weird, you know, they're being called fat nieces, but my wife is fat.
She's even fatter than I am, right? It's like, the whole thing is
he
just.
keeps on throwing people under the bus.
And now do you agree that he is the most unlikable character in the entire Talmud, right? So back to what we were saying before about the putrefying, after that whole narrative. It says, after this digression, the Gemara returns to the story of Rabbi Elazar, son of Rabbi Shimon. And although his flesh did not putrefy, even so Elazar, son of Shimon, still did not rely on his own opinion, as he was worried that he may have erred in one of his decisions. So it clearly, even though he saw that his fat didn't putrefy, which should be the sign that all of his instincts are dead on, the reality is now he's starting to kind of realize, to add a little bit of humility, maybe I'm not as right as I thought I was. As he was worried that he may have erred in one of his decisions. He accepted afflictions upon himself as atonement for his possible sins. In other words, he beat himself or he whipped himself, flailed himself because maybe he had made a mistake before. At night, his attendants would spread out 60 felt bed coverings for him, and in the morning, despite the coverings, they would remove 60 basins of blood and pus from underneath him. I mean, it's disgusting. But because he is a nauseating individual, and he's also kind of like, cutting himself. And the cut is causing so much disgustingness to just emanate from him. But I got to hand it to the Talmud. They didn't pull back any punches on this guy, right? The following day, in other words, every morning, his wife would prepare for him 60 types of relish made from figs, and he would eat them and become healthy. Like she was trying to put him on
Well, he lost baskets of fat.
Right, and she was trying to
fatten him up.
Right, or at least how put like the wife's trying to give him put him on a health food. His wife, concerned for his health, would not allow him to go to the study hall. I think that's what the next word is, so that the rabbis would not push him beyond his limits, right? Because he was probably constantly huffing and puffing every time he and you never know, like his blood pressure was probably through the roof, and if he got angry or triggered in such a way, it could have been significant. And so his wife was trying to keep him from that. In the evening, he would say to his pains, in other words, all of his aches and pains and all of the afflictions that he had self-inflicted, my brothers and my friends, come. In other words, I welcome all of this pain because I deserve it. In the morning, he would say to them, go away, due to the dereliction of Torah study that you caused me. I like the pain in the evening when I'm just sitting around and watching, TV at night. But in the morning, when I've got important things to do, I do not welcome you as, and in these pains. One day, his wife heard him inviting his pains, right? So she overheard him saying, oh, please, my pains come to me. She said to him, you are bringing the pains upon yourself. You have diminished the money of my father's home due to the cost of treating your self-imposed afflictions. And she rebelled against him and went back to her father's home, and he was left with no one to care for. So in other words, she's like, you're spending all our money on things which are harmful to you, and then spending your money on treating the harmful things that you did to yourself. And I can't take it anymore, right? You're wasting all of our money on this insane stuff that you're doing. And so she left them. Wow.
It seems like in Judaism, self-flagellation and causing self-pain would be a big no-no.
Yeah, totally. I've never heard of anyone doing that other than him.
Yeah, than monks and.
Right, it's Opus Dei, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that I seem to remember
I thought it was a Catholic.
right, what was it? Wasn't there
The Dan Brown book.
Right.
The guy
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
self-flagellation and.
right, and that he would whip himself all day long, and as a way of being closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
But this is like
Very
pain that he is bringing on himself because it's like he feels like he needs to punish himself for all of the things that he did. He's an unsavory human being.
Isn't it concerning that he's one of our sages?
Yes,
But I mean, like,
Yes.
what
So
do you
how
have to
come
do to
Rabbi
be a
included him?
sage?
right. Or how come the Talmud included him? I agree. And I guess it's one of those cases in which it's like,
Well, maybe he's a
He rose through the
cautionary
ranks.
tale.
maybe, or maybe
It's his
they,
father,
what's that?
because of his father.
Yes, or maybe it's he just is hanging on the coattails of his father. He was in the cave with him for all those years, or maybe it's look, he may be unsavory, but his Torah study and his teaching is kind of undeniable, and so, which by the way is I would
Do
say
we know
it's a
that?
mark against Judaism that we would say we are going to celebrate a man who is unsavory because of his Torah abilities, but as a human being, he is not so. But we still celebrate him because of what he is as a Torah scholar, and I find that to be, look, the Talmud may be okay with such a thing, but I am not.
But is there evidence that he was actually
Such a scholar?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is. There are other, there are probably not, I can't tell you specifically, but, there's a lot of Talmud stuff which is, this was the debate, this was the discussion, this rabbi said this rabbi said this, they agree with this rabbi. In other words, and that's not story worthy, and that's like, okay, great, that doesn't help create a narrative about a human being, but it does just kind of create his CV of laws that he was the one who kind of instituted, and so therefore they are celebrating the scholarship more than the man. And
It reminds me of the arguments though that come up in this country in current times sometimes about.
Thomas Jefferson.
Exactly.
Thomas
All
Jefferson.
the founding fathers.
All
and-
were
and
slave owners.
historical,
He impregnated his slaves. All this kind of stuff. Look, I don't know. This is just what I've heard, but so epistemology, like, right? What do I know? What do I think?
Right.
But what you're saying is right, which is when you try to whitewash or erase the kind of sins because.
It's hard for human beings to accept this person did great stuff and was an idiot at the same time.
Yeah.
Same person.
Yeah. But excuse me, but the Talmud seems to be okay with it. And that's because, and I, by the way, am not celebrating this. I object to this, but I am acknowledging this because the Talmud is just, and that generation was so infatuated by good scholarship and good Torah learning that they were willing to ignore terrible behavior traits.
I think it's different than you said.
I think it is a little too, come to think of it, because I think our values have evolved over the years. Those values, you're saying they were versus contemporary values at the time, he was a jerk.
But you're
No, but-
Jefferson was, you were placing modern values on 200
Right,
years ago,
historical, right.
and whereas what he did was wrong and acknowledged as wrong as it was happening,
Right.
whereas no one was saying to
Right.
Jefferson what he was doing was
Is that
wrong.
what you meant?
No.
Okay, what were you thinking?
I mean, I think that we don't have any evidence that this guy did anything good, really. I mean,
Other than Torah scholarship.
he-
We don't, and I didn't provide you with Torah scholarship evidence, but let's grant him Torah scholarship evidence. But I don't think it's enough.
there doesn't seem to be like a body of like great things that he did.
No.
I mean, you know,
Again, other than
but
just,
with
other than
Jefferson,
rule correctly and have a famous father, and presumably, and look, the myth is, or the story that we tell ourselves is that the Zohar, which is the Kabbalistic text, which is attributed to Shimon Bar Yochai, the father, even though we know it wasn't written by him, it was written 600 years later or 700 years later by a fellow by the name of Moshe de Leon. However, putting that aside, our tradition ascribes the Zohar to him, and so it's, but then again, actually I have to take it back, because if the Zohar, we may say, oh, that's what they were doing in the cave, is piecing together the secrets of mysticism, but the reality is that they, at the time of the Talmud, weren't claiming that, because the Zohar had not yet been written for them to say that that's what they were doing. That's what we say about him now. So, and we don't ascribe it, by the way, to Elazar, we ascribe it to his father, but the legend has it that that's what they were discussing and working on when they were in the cave.
it gives the mysticism to the mysticism.
Right, it's exactly, so, but if it hadn't been written by the time this was written, they wouldn't be able to, does that make sense? They wouldn't be able to say that that's, I think what they're simply doing is just saying he was a famous father, he was a great Torah, he was a learned Torah scholar, and that is enough for us to celebrate him.
You know,
But give me 1/2 more second. But the Talmud is coming up with bad story after bad story about him. And so that does suggest that even if we, like what they're trying to do was, yeah, famous father, and yeah, Torah, but he was a schmuck. And so, and we're going to tell you that he was a schmuck and show it to you. And the people of his own time were calling him vinegar, son of wine. And no one liked this guy. And he was, schmuck.
Right.
And so therefore, we're trying to say that, yes, he was a smart, and so then on the other hand, maybe you could look at it as we're proud of the Talmud for putting all these stories in there. Because had we ignored these stories, and again,
cover up.
then he would have just been this famous Torah scholar.
Well,
Right.
But as a result of all these stories, you have me and others saying he was a schmuck.
At least it's transparency, as they say.
It is honest.
It's on the table, you can look at it, and
It is honest.
Yeah.
But I don't know what to say other than I'm just like, I find this to be an extraordinary, like the stories, like time after time, I've just given you a beautiful story about these sages and all the greatness of them, and the humility and the kindness and living off of, barely having 2 nickels to run together, and here's a guy who they are not nearly as kind to, and again, I wish I could tell you other stories that you know, there are references to him having to do with laws and judgments that he made, but there are no like narrative stories about him, which would, I didn't cherry pick this. In other words, just give you the, like, admit, okay, I mean, I didn't have to give you that one about when those two guys, you know, you could, that didn't contribute to our narrative. All it did was me just kind of call them fat, basically. But like, I could have left that out, but I didn't because it was just funny to me. But the point is that like, it's not like you have these other stories in which he went and saved this town from being, you know, from something, or, you know, he went and helped this poor, you know, widow with whatever. You don't have those stories. You just have these quite negative stories. And from start to finish, whether it was he in a vindictive way put the donkeys on the roof, whether that's true or not, whether it was he, quickly, you know, accusing someone of being ugly, pot calling the kettle black, and then only after he's like, asked the, you know, why don't you ask the craftsman who made me? He then says, oh, I shouldn't have said that.
You know, on the one hand, it seems like we can be almost embarrassed by him, but proud of the Talmud.
Yes.
Okay. On the other hand, you would think if that's the case, why wouldn't, this is written a long time ago, and it's written, it was final redaction was after this.
Right.
Why not put another rabbi quoting, you know, he was a good at Torah, but he was a
schmuck.
Yeah.
Well,
Maybe it's
you know,
supposed to be an indictment on all the rest of us, all the rest of them.
Or at minimum, at least you could say that it is the Talmud communicating that, you know, that there's more to just being a Torah scholar. Yes, they are celebrating his scholarship. They are celebrating his lineage. But
You know,
he's not a rabbi, because just like that man who was quote ugly said, I hope there's no one else like you in this place. That does not make anyone else like you.
You know, it's hard to come to grips, I think, with our heroes doing bad stuff. I mean, and there's a lot of examples in our lifetimes
Yes.
of that. Okay, and the one that came to me is the rabbi you and I know from New Jersey.
Oh yeah,
That was so embarrassing that he was a rabbi.
yeah. This is his name was
But we had, you know, I mean, after,
Newlander. Fred Newlander was the rabbi at the synagogue that I went to just before he was rabbi. Just before me, he hired a hitman to murder his wife.
Oh my God.
Oh, you know that story? It's funny.
No.
I say sarcastically.
yeah,
No, hired a hitman to kill his wife because
yeah.
he was having an affair or whatever, and wanted to be.
Was the rabbi in DC?
And then there's the rabbi in DC who's
Cameras
just as
in
bad.
the
He's putting cameras in the mikvah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Years.
I'm gonna vomit.
right.
Right.
I mean, the first one, of course, like murder, hitman.
Right.
That's actually not I want to vomit, because it's so like everyone knows, like that's horrible.
Yeah.
But the rabbi who stuck cameras in the mikvah,
Yeah.
like that makes me not physically nauseous to think that he would take advantage of women in their moment of vulnerability. Like, ugh. And so, I don't know what to say except.
Well, they're human, and
That's the part that's hard to come to
pretty
grips with.
horrible sometimes.
Well, yeah, except we're human too, and we don't do that. And so they are human, they are fallible.
We put our heroes up on a pedestal.
Right, yeah.
And they put themselves there, you know. I mean, the story about long after he was dead, the story come out about Kennedy having affairs with a lot of women, including Marilyn Monroe or Bill Clinton, or, you know, it's like, if you hear it about your neighbor, or if you hear it about, you know, the guy at work or something like that, it's okay, you know, but if you hear about one of your heroes, it's like,
It's challenging because, and this actually applies to me. Bill Clinton was my hero.
mhm.
When he was the president, he was, to me, absolutely all that. Like, I felt like every time he opened his mouth, It was profound, it was meaningful, it was like exactly what we needed to hear at the moment. I felt like he was smart and that he was communicating a true, appreciation for geopolitics and global politics. Like I was just like enamored by this guy. He was my hero. And he remained my hero after he left office. I was just like, I couldn't bring myself to think that what he did and how he took advantage of Lewinsky, I kept thinking, every president must have done that, and why, like, he's still my hero. And then it's just as I grew older, I was just like, no, I'm not okay with this.
Right.
It's not fine.
Right.
But it was hard for me. It took me a while to be able to kind of break from
That's what I mean.
this
Mhm.
this heroism that I attributed to him.
Yeah.
And
One difference is, though, it seems that, at least according to my memory, there were incidents in our heroes falling, okay? Some horrendous, but nevertheless incidents. This guy was like, his whole life, over and over and over and over again.
it wasn't an anecdote. It was
Right.
like that was his life choices. Like he was just constantly
Kid,
right.
Right.
Oh, yeah, he must have been the
he
biggest
must have been
bully.
an awful.
Right. Well, he was putting donkeys up on the roof as a child, and A and B, he was shooting space lasers out of his eyes after,
Right.
and C was, and he gets offended because he thinks he's smarter than
Right.
his friend.
Yeah.
He thinks he's smarter than his friend, and says, "How dare you? Like I should be." I mean, it's just like, what is wrong with you? Like, there's
So-
just something just wrong with the guy.
Is this the only guy like this in the
I don't know any other stories like this.
about anybody else?
Right.
Yeah. Well,
that
that's
other
strange
guy,
that there's only-
the Nasi who tricked the.
Oh,
guy.
right. Okay, right. There was
I
some.
mean,
Yeah.
lots of petty stuff
Okay,
going
that
on.
was petty. I agree, but that was, you're right. So there's the Gamliel, Rabban
Yeah.
Gamliel, who, for example,
Good memory.
made Yosh because they were arguing about what day was
Right.
Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and he said it's this day, and Yoshua was like, no, it's the day before. So they're arguing about a single day, and he, in such a vindictive way, ordered Yoshua to come to him on Yom Kippur, 10 days later, on the day which was the day before Yom Kippur for Gamliel, but the day of Yom Kippur for Yehoshua, and ordered him to come with his money purse, saying, right, and again, like, but that's
Just to embarrass him and
just to
yeah,
embarrass
yeah.
him. I agree, and so you're right. That's a bad one too. And I think I have told you over the past. I was like, I don't like this guy very much, but it doesn't even hold a candle to how much I dislike Elazar Ben.
Yes.
I mean, this guy is just horrible. Just in terms of his insults to people, just how he's selling out the Jewish community, how he is making accusations based on just speculation at best, that he is continuing to build up himself, saying, "Oh, I was right." He's letting his sycophantic students confirm
Yeah.
the nourishkeit that he believes already. All of it is just step after step. It's horrible.
And even when he's learning, he's not modest about it. He's puffed up about it.
Right. Whereas Gamliel he is the Nasi, he is in charge. And if people are just constantly questioning authority, if everyone is just kind of making Shabbos for themselves, so to speak, if anyone can say, no, you're wrong about this, then it's like, then there's no order. And what he was trying to do, which I do agree with, and this, by the way, is how Akiva explained to Yehoshua in that story, like, no, do it the way he says, because the text says these are these are the holidays that you shall proclaim. In other words, that means it's not what it is, but it's what we proclaim it to be, is what Akiva said, brilliant as he was. And he, Akiva himself, and he convinced Yehoshua that, no, go, do it. Don't be the opposition just for the sake of being the opposition. Let's be one. And while we're at it, Akiva too, as great as he was, remember, he went and studied and then, you know, because his wife Rachel said, go and study, I want you to, and then
He's a rotten family guy.
he's around, and then he proceeds to do it another 12 years afterwards. I mean, right, and so it's like, and he knew exactly what he was doing, and it was how hurtful it was. So he's not perfect. So it is nice to see that even for the great of greats, Akiva of them all, he's not perfect, and you know, and they pointed out, but nothing compares to this guy. I mean, really, nothing compares to this guy. He is a first-rate schmuck, and his colleagues knew it because they called him. Even the one who kind of like, and I put in air quotes, adopted him. His adopted father, and that's in air quotes because that didn't happen that way, but it was that guy kind of was looking out for him. Even the guy who was looking out for him said, I give up. You're the terrible guy. You're vinegar.
Kevin,
Lisa.
so part of me just thinks he was raised in a cave, buried in
All right, fair enough.
sand.
Good point.
So
You're
he's
right.
not
Buried
going
up
to
to his-
have any
up to his-
skills or,
And so it's like, what do you expect if you?
Yeah.
Good point. If you have a person, who is oppressed or who is tortured for however many years of his life. I mean, they talk about solitary confinement and how that deeply affects a person's brain, and so you're right. That's a good point. Which is, who knows what being kind of stuck in a cave with his father, who's like, they clean up your room.
well, I mean, look at what they're talking about for these kids, with having 2 years of COVID confinement.
Yeah, good point.
And this guy had his whole growing up.
Yeah, that's that's a great insight, and I that doesn't make me like him anymore, but maybe it makes me have a modicum more of compassion for him, maybe an iota more compassion for him, of which I had zero before, and now I have a touch of, but because of your point, If
the Talmud, part of the Talmud's purpose is to make future generations like us think and challenge our own mind and come to. This story sure did it, boy.
Yeah,
This is
and,
one of the.
and at minimum, I do really believe, and I respect the Talmud for saying that there is more to a human being than just their Torah scholarship. Yeah. Because if there wasn't to the Talmud, then they wouldn't have told these stories. They wouldn't have sullied his image. So much. They did.
They censored themselves.
All right, boys and girls, this rabbi is going to sleep. This rabbi is going to bed.
Drive carefully.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's right. I drank a double black tea, so hopefully I got a little jolt of caffeine in me
You can make it down the block.
so I can make it down the block. Yeah. Anyway, I'm really happy to see you guys. Welcome back, and I'm relatively certain. Let me just double check before we.
Next week.
Relatively certain we have class. Yes, next week we have class. Not the following week as a board meeting, but next week, the 13th, we have class, and then also the 27th we have class. And
Do we have Torah next week?
yes,
Monday as
next
well?
week we have Torah study, and we continue with Torah study from Monday on. And I will say this, that
Rabbi, the 19th
of
is
what?
not.
Oh, no Torah study on the 19th?
Yeah.
Because of Martin Luther King Day,
Martin Luther
right?
King.
And, excuse me, and originally there wasn't going to be this tech study on February 3rd because I was leading the temple trip to Cuba. It may still be the case that we go to Cuba, but it's looking less and less likely. So stand by and stand down and stand by. What happened?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it happened.
I
Oh,
was
Well,
gonna
and they're
ask you whether you
they're
were
now
going
talking
since-
about, well, we want Cuba too.
Right.
oh,
We could.
Yeah, they're talking about it. And by the way, did you hear that the new president of Venezuela has pretty much claimed that
He's not.
the reason why Maduro is all a Zionist plot?
Oh, my God.
The woman?
No, I did not
No,
know
Is
that.
Is
the-
acting, is
No,
that,
it's a male, I thought.
No, it's
What's new, Rabbi? What's new? They all do it.
Protocol of Zion, that's right.
Oh,
It's a Zionist plot,
no, the
It's so obvious.
the
And
woman.
Venezuela,
The
right.
vice president
The
was
vice
a woman.
president.
Oh my God, so yeah, well, we're to blame for Maduro.
but
And,
the loyal vice president.
Geez,
so they
she
haven't
found me out.
even changed.
right, once again, we did it, right, how did they, I thought we had covered this one up so well, turns out. I thought we had done such a great job of plausible deniability, and what do you know, she figured it out. Anyway, it's really nice to see you guys.
You too, Rabbi.
And I'll
Welcome.
look forward to seeing you next week when I am much better rested, of which I will be, I promise you. I think I'm gonna be back to normal by tomorrow morning. I'm gonna get
If you can
I'm gonna
sleep.
get, I'm gonna get 12 hours tonight, I know it. I've never gotten 12 hours before, ever. Hey, bye, see you guys.